सतर्क रहिए।
Namaskar and welcome back to Media Scan, your weekend dose of headlines, controversies and perspectives. Viewers, not very long ago, we had a special episode where we discussed how Indians were terrorized by radicalized jihadi elements in Leicester in the UK and other neighbouring towns and suburbs. These Indians, instead of receiving any succour or help from the administration for a long time, were ironically blamed for what was being done to them, confining them into temples, unable to come out of their homes, as the jihadi people ran riot on the streets of the towns and cities. And as I said, ironically, the blame was being put on so-called extremist Hindu elements. From that to this day, a study sanctioned by the Home Office of the United Kingdom has come out saying that Islamic terror and jihadi terror are the biggest threat to their country. From that day to this report. So, is the UK finally waking up to the real threat and shedding its denialism? We are going to discuss this very sensitive and important issue on Media Scan this evening. To discuss the subject with me, I have a panel of stalwarts. Coming to my first guest for the evening, Ashok Sajjanhar, well-known former diplomat who has represented the country in various parts of the world. He will be able to tell us better about what's going on globally and why this late realization in the UK. Namaskar, Ashok Sajjanhar. Welcome, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much, Smita ji.
Also with me, Colonel R.S. Singh, well-known author, known to speak his mind on issues of terror, of jihad, of internal security. Welcome back to Media Scan, Colonel Singh.
Namaskar, namaskar, namaskar. Thank you for
And
inviting.
Abhinav Pandya, founder of the Ushanaj Foundation. He is known to be studying in geopolitics the effects of radicalization and issues related with it. In fact, Abhinav's book on Islamic radicalization in the Indian subcontinent is one of the most authentic books on the subject, as we are told. Abhinav Pandya, welcome back.
Namaskar. Thank you very much for inviting me.
And Ashok Sajjanhar, I want to come to you, sir. As I was saying, we have all witnessed the pain, the terror that was faced by Indians and their relatives in Leicester and the neighbouring towns and suburbs of the UK. From that day to this report, where it is acknowledged that Islamic terror is the biggest threat to their country and it is directly related and is being funded and inspired from the people in Pakistan. Late realization, sir?
Yeah, thank you very much, Smita ji, and always a pleasure to be on your program.
Thank you.
Let me make one or two very broad general points. One, of course, as you mentioned, better late than never. You know, this realization that it has come, although it might be late, but I think it is very welcome. The second aspect is that although this report might be pertaining to what is happening in the United Kingdom, what has been happening there, and it goes into all the terror attacks that have taken place there. But I think this report can really be extrapolated to a large number of other countries. I think, in fact, globally, if you look at it, whether it is in the United States, whether it is in Canada, whether it is in Australia or other countries where such sort of activities have been going on, I think it can be extrapolated. The third element also here is that Pakistan has been totally exposed and indicted as far as this report is concerned. And what this report also mentions is that there is in the United Kingdom, but as I said, this can be extrapolated to other countries, that although there has been a much greater focus on extreme right-wing ideology, but in fact the worst perpetrators of the crimes of terrorism, of radicalization, are the Islamist jihadi terror groups. Now, when the United Kingdom looks at the extreme right-wing ideology, it is a much broader spectrum that they are looking at. While when they are looking at the Islamist terror groups, it is a much smaller spectrum. So I think all these aspects need to be looked at very carefully. And the final point here in my introductory comments, I would say is that it is Pakistan that has been fomenting this trouble, this problem in the United Kingdom. And as I said, it can be spread, it can be seen also in other parts of the world.
Right, sir.
It also indicts the the Khalistan groups.
And in fact, we never had any doubt. The Indian establishment, our people, and not only in India, across the globe, we never had any doubt where the epicenter lies. However, this report does throw a kind of a global focus among the people who have been living in denial. Colonel R.S.N. Singh, if I may come to you, sir, and I'm reading from the report, the page 148 of this Prevent report, as it is called, and it says, it is common for narratives around blasphemy in the UK to have a connection back to hardline Pakistani clerics and or the Khatm-e-Nabuwwat movement, which has a well-established presence in Pakistan. Now the question, sir, is India globally has been raising this at various fora. Time and again it has been done to death from our policy makers that the epicenter lies in our western neighbors' territory. Why has it taken so long for the world to wake up, number one? And related to that, sir, at least now, will we see some substantive action in this direction?
As far as the culture of blasphemy is concerned, it is the Muslims of the subcontinent, they carried it to Britain. And, then it infected in the rest, it got infected in the rest of the world. It started right from the time, you would have heard of that incident, Mahashay Rajpal. That was killed in 1928. And remember, that is the time when the British were ruling.
That is 1 century ago, sir.
No, they did not. And then the problem here is that, the Muslims of the subcontinent, when they went to Britain, in very large numbers. I mean, even today they have a good influence over the over narratives in Britain, including the British Broadcasting Corporation. So they were these were the Muslims whom actually I'm talking about the Muslims of the subcontinent, that the history, geography, sociology, culture, it did not support the Muslims because they were converts. And remember, for Muslims of the subcontinent or elsewhere also, more so in case of the subcontinent, the impetus to Islam is the concept of kafir. Because you have Hindus here as kafir, so there is an impetus to Islam. In Pakistan, well, they have a land where they can experiment everything with radicalization, any kind of radicalization and Islamization. And there, the kafir, I mean, this impetus is constantly required. So they make a kafir out of a Shia or an Ahmadiyya, or a Barelvi makes a kafir out of a Deobandi. So this process is constantly on. And then in Britain, what happened was that they get this constant feed. You have this, Christians, though Christianity in Britain is quite on the, Protestantism is quite on the decline. What has happened to churches? So many churches have been converted into mosques. So this constant, this, search for kafirs, I mean, that leads to blasphemy. And blasphemy is, for any, for any reason, you can't even, reveal the truth of what is written in the scriptures. You can't carry out an honest research. And I'm sure that any madhab which is, based on terror, and whose basis is terror, I mean, then, it's no longer a madhab. You have turned it into a, criminal enterprise.
Okay.
And I read this, report about that, which has come out from Britain. They talk of they were at one place they mentioned this, that if people take objection to the I'm reading quoting the report, that people take objection to the term Islamization. He says no, if you don't use this word you cannot actually address today's problems. You can't say that radicalization, Osama bin Laden type of, approach or behavior, it doesn't encompass the present this thing. The Sunnis
Colonel
didn't
Singh,
like it, so they went
I'll
and
have to
threw some
interrupt you here, sir,
some pages
if
of
you are able
Quran.
to hear me. And I'll come to one. You have spoken in detail and explained the background of this entire, the ideology around blasphemy. I'll come to one more aspect which is ingrained in this report here, very, very clearly stated. But before that, I want to bring in Abhinav Pandya into the discussion. Mr. Pandya, since you have been studying radicalization globally very, very in great detail, I want to understand from you, as Colonel Singh was saying, is this radicalization ingrained in the ideology, or do you think there are global powers working day and night to push radicalization among the people, and India is one of the biggest targets of these powers globally, which is also corroborated from this report. And in fact, the Prevent report says that it is time the UK must become more mindful of jihadist radicalization, not only the global, that is the overseas radicalization, but within the UK. Your take. Yes.
Thank you very much, Smitaji, for inviting me. And I must say that radicalization, to a large extent, is deeply ingrained in the ideology. And I have spoken to n number of Wahhabi clerics, and they say that if you remove politics out of Islam, then it's of no use. So in Islam, they use the word political Islam. Maududi also defined Sharia as something which can define each and every aspect of human life in the society, right from the state, right from the social institution, to what you do in your bedroom, to what you do in your drawing room. The personal aspect of life is also defined by Sharia. Secondly, when you use the word kafir, when you use concepts like jizya for dhimmis, those who are non-Muslims, when you define a strict code for people who don't adhere to your ideology and subscribe to your views, then definitely we have to say that radicalization is deeply ingrained. Thirdly, it's not just about the non-Muslims. There is this concept called takfiri. Those who don't adhere to the hardline Islam, that is the Salafi Wahhabi doctrine, and that includes people who follow Sufi lifestyle or Sufi ideology, though even they also have their own problems with rigidity and extremism. But Sufis or Shias, they are also considered as people who are heretic, or Ahmadiyas are considered as people who are heretic, and they are called wajibul qatl. So certainly,
so what you are saying, and as we have been witnessing, is that Muslims also of various sects are the targets of these radicalized groups, right?
Yes, certainly. I would also like to make one more point, that we should not be surprised when all these, activities of Islamism and radicalization in Britain are traced back to Pakistan. This is nothing new. Well, Britain is, basically reaping the fruits of the seeds which it sown long back, and even in early 1980s, they were giving shelter to people like Amanullah Khan, JKLF, who even killed an Indian diplomat.
Yes.
Later, Masood Azhar, the late founder of Jaish-e-Mohammed, visited England in 1993, gave 40 lectures in a month-long tour in famous mosques like, Mosque Jamia Mosque of Betley, and Dewsbury Mosque, famous mosque. 40% of mosques in Britain are controlled by the Deobandis, who belong to the Harakat network of Pakistan. And Harakat network, it includes lots and lots of terrorist organizations like Harkatul Mujahideen, Harkatul Ansar, even Taliban for that matter. So all these people,
there are also
history.
half a dozen or perhaps more think tanks. He provides a sufficient ample platform to these elements to propagate their thoughts.
They provide us. I must say that for the Britain, damage is already done. They have entered into an irreversible phase, and Islamism is going to hold a complete sway in Britain, because they are still not able to
that's a very, very serious allegation or a concern to raise. And I must come to Ashok Sajjanhar here as a diplomat, a former diplomat. He will be able to understand the intricacies and explain it for the benefit of our viewers. Sir, Abhinav Pandya, as you just heard, is saying that in Britain, it's almost an irreversible situation. For decades, the kind of policy that was adopted by the UK establishment has has brought us to this situation. However, Swela Braverman, the Home Secretary, was very categorical this week when she said that they have not only acknowledged this report of the Prevent, but they will be taking swift implementation and steps to bring about whatever is the corrective measures on these issues. Do you think there is hope left?
No, I think definitely there is hope left. It has moved, the needle has moved very far. But then we'll also have to wait, Smita, to see if, the decision and policy makers in the United Kingdom, whether they are able to walk the talk. It's easy to say that they are going to take action. But what is the sort of action that they are going to take, both domestically as well as globally? Because I think what we really need to do is, as you have mentioned, as the other panelists have mentioned, Smita, we have been mentioning, India has been saying for a long time that Pakistan is the epicenter of terrorism. As far as internationally, globally, I don't think any other country has made this, comment in such a stark manner. I think we really need to take this report to, the other, in terms of other countries, other think tanks, other policymakers, other governments, tell them. And what this report also has stated is that this has been going on. It's not a recent phenomenon. This has been going on for the last 20 years. What it says is that we have taken that, this right-wing extremist ideology is the biggest threat. And we have been looking at the Islamist terror and Islamist ideology in a very narrow band. But actually, it has been, we need to look at the Islamist ideology in a much broader perspective, because there are a large number of below the terror threshold, whether it is think tanks or it is even in madrasas or mosques or elsewhere, that they are preaching, and they are preaching hatred, they are preaching radicalization, but they don't come within the ambit, they don't come within the dragnet of the law when it is dealing with these issues, because they are looking only at proscribed organizations in the United Kingdom. They have not really spread the net very far and wide. This is what they really need to do, I think, both domestically and also internationally. Smita.
Yes, sir. And I know you have to go, so I won't keep you long, sir. But very quickly, there is a political question here. And since we have seen the change in the realization, this question becomes incumbent. We know that people from Indian origin and Indians are not new into the UK establishment. But certainly, when you see it in the light of the previous denialism all these years, can becoming Prime Minister of the country of a person of Indian origin may have had any impact, if at all, in this entire policy change?
We have to really look at that. I think this whole discussion took place also when Kamala Harris became the Vice President of the United States. I think Rishi Sunak, basically, he has a better understanding, he has a better appreciation, he has a better knowledge of what Hinduism is all about. And that Hinduism is the most tolerant religion. We don't go around converting people. Here, I think in the Abrahamic religions, what really creates the problem is that anyone belonging to another religion, they seek to bring him into their own fold, saying that if you don't come, you are not going to heaven, you are going to be proscribed to hell. Hinduism doesn't believe in that. Hinduism says all paths are equal, all paths are true, all paths are the same. So I think he might be able to give that understanding, but otherwise, he will also act in the interest of the United Kingdom, in the interest of Britain, but of course with a much better understanding.
Understood,
Smita,
sir.
You would recall that when Swela Braverman, when she had spoken about the Indians coming into the United Kingdom, she herself is a migrant who has come to the United Kingdom.
True.
So she should have a better appreciation that
but
as far
so
as
was
Indians
Preeti
are
Patel.
concerned,
So was
Yes.
Preeti Patel. That did not make any change. However, we shall not dwell too much on that, and we'll come to the substantive issue in hand. Colonel RSN Singh, there is one more aspect.
Thank you very much, Smita.
Please
If
do
you
not go
permit,
away.
I will.
Please do not go away, sir. Just a few
Okay.
minutes. Please
Okay.
stay with us for just a few minutes. I want to
Sure,
come to
sure.
Colonel RSN Singh. Sir, you spoke in detail about blasphemy and other radicalized issues. There is one very important aspect of this Prevent report in the context of Indians and Indians living outside India, which says that Prevent should also be mindful of pro-Khalistan extremism emerging from the UK Sikh communities. It says that the number is very tiny. It's just a handful of people, but they are able to manage somehow to defame the Indian government, even the Indian people, in order to incite Khalistani sentiments in the minds of Sikhs and their supporters. How do you look at this?
No, I'm sorry to say, that the ISI and maybe earlier CIA, they were successful in polluting the minds of a certain segment of the Sikh population. There is no denying the fact.
Yes.
Polluting to the extent that they have abandoned their own scriptures. I was looking for, a genuine copy of the Dasam Granth. It's hardly available. I have not been able to get it. But what I have got is from here and there is just, this commentaries on that, not the genuine. So this is the extent, and Ambassador Southern Har knows, everybody know how the CIA and ISI took up this project. Now, where I think, once you were created as a nation state, a different nation state after partition, our focus also should have been on the theocratic aspects of your nation building. Now you can't leave it to that all religions are equal, all religions teach peace. This is very, very easy to say. If all mazhabs, all religions teach peace, then why are we discussing today? After all, it is people from this subcontinent who have gone there and doing it. It's not the Arabs.
So I get that point, sir. But the other side of it, the situation in our hand now that this report has so categorically recognized what is going on, and we keep following it in social media and elsewhere, how a completely false narrative is being pushed, trying to create a wedge between Hindus and Sikhs and other religions. Now that the report has acknowledged it, do you think there will be a sort of a proper movement towards controlling these jihadi elements who are also fanning pro-Khalistani sentiments?
Yes. I hope they they act on it, act on this report, and you are absolutely right. All the crooks and criminals of this world, somehow they find shelter in London. Whether it is the JKLF, whether it is the LTT, you take it. Because they took a lot of pride in the fact, they thought that, we people are, of a very inferior civilization and they belong to a very superior civilization, but the fact was otherwise. Now it is recoiling on them. But madam,
yes.
one minute.
Yes.
Don't wait, for the, don't depend on the mood of the West for far too long. If you would say Pakistan is the center of jihad, I may say, and people may not like it, that it is India and Pakistan is the center of jihad, jihad in the world.
Okay, let me get another view on that. Abhinav Pandya, is it true that while Pakistan certainly is the epicenter of terror, there are enough elements within India who are causing terror here in the society, among the people, and also exporting it elsewhere?
Yes, I'll agree with Colonel RSN Singh on this issue, and I must say that Indian society, particularly the segments of the Muslim society, have undergone massive radicalization over the last 3 to 4 decades. In particular in the states like Kerala, West Bengal, And even in the recent times, some of the countries, like some of the Islamist groups affiliated with the Turkish Islamist groups, and even I wouldn't rule out the possibility of the state support also. They have been radicalizing people here in a major way. And here, if you see, even the small cities, when the Charlie Hebdo matter took place, a small city like Udaipur in the North India was witness to the largest demonstration, especially on this blasphemy issue. Even a small city like Udaipur in the recent time, Kanhaiya was brutally murdered in an ISIS-style killing. So definitely, India has become, and there is a huge constituency for the support. Well, we always keep saying that a very few number of people joined ISIS from India. Well, I think that it has been overdone, and I guess we need to understand the internal happenings, what is happening within the society, and even in the recent
I'll have to stop
BGP
you here.
Conference. Just
I guess we'll need yes, please complete.
Even in the recent BGP conference, it was mentioned that the radicalization of the young Muslim youth has emerged as the most serious concern in Indian security.
Yes, correct. And I'll give the last word to Ashok Sajjanhar just for 30 seconds, sir. Colonel Singh was just saying that it is, for a long enough time, we have been looking at the West for everything. But, such reports may come and go. But should we keep waiting for the West to do what we are required to do? Quickly, sir.
Not at all. I think we need to, clean up our own act, and also we need to create our own narratives to go around to the world. I don't think so far we have been looking at others to feed the narratives, to bring out the narratives which will have greater credibility, which will have greater resonance as far as the global community is concerned. I think India today is in a position and has the clout and the weight and the traction to be able to make its own narratives. It's not only in economy, it's not only in security and strategic affairs, but I think it's also in terms of the thinking, in terms of the sending out a message as far as the mindset, creating a mindset for the people, both as far as India is concerned and as far as this scourge of terrorism. We speak about terrorism, but I think we need to bring it out with much greater substance so as to make it more credible and more believable as far as the global community is concerned.
And certainly, while such reports may come and go, it is time that we should raise our voice further. We have already been doing this, but at a time when India is assuming the leadership of the global south and coming out on its own in the global arena, it is time to stress how our people have been suffering due to terrorism and why the world needs to take it up much more seriously. Perhaps this Prevent report is one of those indications that the time has come for that. On that note, gentlemen, it's time to bring an end to this very fruitful conversation. I thank all of you, Ashok Sajjanhar, Colonel RSN Singh and Abhinav Pandya, for finding the time for Media Scan. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Viewers, as I mentioned in the beginning, Indians living in the UK were worried why there was such a denialism about jihadi terrorism and radicalization, while there was an effort to pin the blame on other people. This report seems to have brought a lot of hope. Let us see how it goes from here. On that note, it's a wind up on Media Scan for this evening. Namaskar.